So today I just want to talk a little bit to you about what is your why. So you can actually apply this to anything you do, but I'll talk about obviously the property. Most of what we do on this channel and on property is about growing food, learning our property, what's provided on property, what we could grow on property, and taking it all the way through the table and providing healthy meals for ourselves and our daughter. This year, I wanted to give you kind of a heads up on what we will be covering, but in respect to one of our primary methods and thought processes. So I think it's important to know your why. And for us, it kind of started out as just for good food, food that's coming more directly from the land is just tastier. And my husband's a chef, so obviously that's a big important factor. It tends to be healthier in general if you could get closer to your source. So we try to do a lot of local and a lot of on property, hyper local food in our meals. Not 100%, definitely not. I mean, you do what you can and you inch towards your goals. I am focusing maybe a little bit more on health aspects of some of that recently. I don't really get into health stuff on the channel other than what research says about certain foraged items and things. Everybody has a different why. Why do you want to grow your own food? I think most people watching this channel are either attempting to do that or want to do that. What is your why? And for me, it's also getting out into nature. So, getting out here, working with my hands, getting away from the hustle and bustle. I mean, I work a daytime job. There's a lot of reasons why we're out here and doing gardening and chickens and foraging and all that. And yes, it's about food. It's all about food, but it's also about just getting back to nature. And this is always grounded me. There's a reason why I came all the way to the back of my property, our zone 5 area, to do this video is because this is what recharges me, is getting out here. So what recharges, what energizes you is all, of course, very important. But what is your why? If you're wanting to grow your own food, if you're learning about different techniques to do that, we used to do that in our apartment just outside New York City. We had a 5 or 6 foot by 20-foot balcony that we had potted plants, and it expanded when we had a property a little further outside the city. We had a little postage stamp property where we had a corner of our yard as a pretty darn intensive garden. And then moving back to Michigan and acquiring a 5 acre property, we're not using the whole property for agriculture. We're using maybe a fifth of it for that, for our chickens and for our garden. And we're expanding our food forest and things like that. But we kept at least 3 of these acres pretty wild, and you can argue 4 with our front area being a little less dense. We did that for a reason. I mean, you could get food out here as well. So what I want to focus on for this year is, again, growing food, but I want some more of the thought processes behind it. I always kind of do the how-to videos and how we do things. There are so many different methods to doing things. One of our main philosophies for growing is applying permaculture principles to that. So, one thing we'll do with this channel is I'm going to start going into those a little bit more. There is a book that, if you kind of want to follow along and see where I'm getting some of these ideas from, I think this book is more of an easy to read, less textbook style, but still packed full of information book on permaculture, and a nice first step on learning about permaculture principles is Intro to Permaculture by Bill Mollison. So I do have this book and reference it quite a bit, but I think One thing I will start with this year is just starting to break down some of those sections of that book. So every time I mention that book in my videos and some of those principles, what I will do is I'll link it in a comment. So if you want to take a deeper dive into that, you can pull up that book directly. But most people don't even know what permaculture is. So if we're just going by on just basics, the concept of permaculture, the broad view of it, there's kind of two thought processes, and a lot of people do apply it to growing food as their primary process. But it's really a science of designs, of integrating systems. You can apply it to agriculture and growing food, but you can also apply it to building a house. You can also apply it to business and take these same concepts and apply them to many aspects of life. Again, on this channel, we're going to focus more on the growing food because that's what we do with this channel, but you can actually broaden this concept quite a bit further. The word permaculture, there's debate on, is it permanent agriculture? For those people who are really primarily applying this to the food systems, a lot of them are thinking more of the permanent agriculture system, something sustainable that can help regenerate resources and feed into it so there's less input into your system and less waste from your system. And that's definitely important, but that's really only a part of it. Another thought of how to break down that word is actually permanent culture. So you can put this on a broader scale on your local community and how to integrate the systems in your community so that they are more efficient, so there is less waste, and so you can provide more within your local community for the local community. And I do think that's really important, especially as things are going right now with just food prices, all these different scares and resources that are just skyrocketing right now. I mean, it's been one thing after the next last few years, but uh, it is important to bring stuff back home. Bring stuff back home so that we can help not truck this stuff all over the world and be dependent on just a few huge resources, but have a variety of sources for our foods, more of a variety of foods, more of a local system for that is important. And I don't think we're getting rid of big ag. That's not going away. I don't see that at all. But on the other hand, there's certain things that it just makes more sense to provide locally. I live in Southwest Michigan, and the diversity of things we could grow here in this country is second only to California. And here's a huge difference between Michigan and California. We may not produce quantity as much as California. California's a little bigger. Michigan's a pretty darn big state, you guys. Most people think of the lower peninsula. We have a whole other peninsula of Michigan where we can grow things and provide a bunch of resources. But what we have the advantage of is water. We're surrounded by it. We don't have to worry about, rainy season versus dry season. We have 4 seasons. What we have coming from the sky right now, just a little bit of this is going to help us grow food this season. We can grow the second largest variety of foods in Michigan to any other state in this country. And we have more resources here that are available to us. We're surrounded by lakes, giant lakes. Like, you can't see across those lakes. If you haven't been to a Great Lake, put it on your bucket list because they look like oceans. Freshwater, but they do look like oceans with waves, with beaches, with rocky shores, which means we actually have a great fish source as long as we keep that water clean. So, yeah, I mean, we have all these resources right here in Michigan. Each local place is going to have its resources that can be used or that can be developed, and it can be developed more efficiently. I mean, we get a little lazy here with water, I think, because frankly, to store water here, you probably need to dig out a lake. You can't do it in bins without having a heck of a lot of runoff every year. But you develop the systems for your area. Actually, that would be a nice thing to do on property. Put a little pond on property. It's on the bucket list. It's not happening this year. Anyway, so knowing your why and what you could do in your area and learning about your area is good. Now, I mentioned permaculture as a system, and it does have a few core ethics that we tend to try to apply. And it's three main things. Basically, take care of the earth. Try to leave it better than what you landed on it with. Take care of the people. So, yeah, you got to take care of the people. You can't take care of the earth and ignore the people. And if you have abundance, give it back. Give it back to the earth, give it back to people, give it back to your community. Share those resources. Trade, barter, sell, whatever it takes to keep you and your property and your community going. Those are the three things: earth care, people care, and share in the abundance. And, that is what we do here. You could do that just within your own property system. You could do that within your community. Like I said, this is something that could be much broader scale, but I think you focus on what piece you can provide. And I think that if each person does that, we do create broader and broader systems that will be more sustainable than what we currently have. Our system in the US is quite a competitive system. So, one thing that we need to think about is, how can we all interrelate? It is not good to have monopolies because everybody knows if there's a monopoly on something, prices get jacked up. It's really only available to those who have the resources to obtain that. We have competition, but the competition, we think of butting heads in competition. Who's better? Who can sell more? Who can do this? But frankly, it could be a cooperation, a team between systems. You could think of this on your own property. You have multiple plants you could put in your garden. You have weeds that like to come in. And we always tend to have this focus on competition, competition, competition. But what if these are mutually beneficial? Think of more how these things can cooperate than compete. Think of how we can apply these to make things more sustainable and get more out of smaller spaces. So that is a lot of what permaculture is about. Permaculture is a science of designs. It's really interdisciplinary to science. You're taking biology, you're taking ecology, you're taking engineering, you're taking all these different sciences and putting them to design ecologically sustainable systems, personally sustainable systems as well. And if you combine that, I mean, if you think about science is not static. Science is all about a method to learn what's going on, what works, test it, see if it works, make adjustments, test again, see if it works, make adjustments. Science is not fact. Science are things that you try and adjust with each step in the process. It is a process. And so you can apply that to your property and not think of it, oh, my hugel bed is permaculture, or my herb spiral, if you make that, is permaculture, or these zones 1 through 5, that's what permaculture is. No, it's how do you integrate everything? How do you design a system that's sustainable and coming up with these systems that are streamlined, that feed into itself, that waste product from one part is a resource for another, and make it all work together. And if you do that, you don't need so many inputs. You can start seed saving and growing your own food. You have to bring in fewer seeds. You can forage and learn what's in your backyard. Even if you don't have a woods like this, you can learn what's in your backyard and see what you can use for food or for maybe first aid, medicine. Basics. I don't see medicine going anywhere either. I work in the field. However, there are some basic things you can use from your backyard that you don't have to buy. You don't have to buy calamine lotion. If you have plantain in your backyard, you have plenty of things to put on bug bites and bee stings. So, learning these systems, learning from your environment, and applying it, and it's not going back in time, it's taking what we currently know and applying it to make it more sustainable. So, what I'm going to do here now, I have a set of videos right now that's kind of focused more on zone 5 and actual foraging reishi and what you can use that for. That will be coming out next. But what you'll also see scattered through the spring and summer and probably through the whole year are just some discussions about some of these permaculture ideas and principles and how we're trying to apply them on property, some ideas we have for expanding some of that, some of the things we're experimenting with, because permaculture is all about experimentation. Like I said, it's a science. Science is experiments. So we'll keep you up to date on what we're doing here and our thought processes and why we're trying different things. If you could just list down below, what is your why? Why are you wanting to grow food? Why are you interested in this topic? What do you hope to learn from this channel and from others as well? And what are you doing on your property so far, or plan to do? If you haven't started yet, start small. Pick a couple of little projects and experiment. Have fun with it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You learn something, adjust, and try again next year. I'll link another video here at the end that is related to our upcoming series. We'll see you with our next one. Take care, guys.